everybody is doing well as we start off another edition of World Edition here on a Tuesday afternoon. I know that the first thing that comes to my mind in terms of events is actually a sports event. Because I actually was up late last night watching a little bit of the NBA Finals, and it does look like Denver went ahead and swept those Los Angeles Lakers. So LeBron will have to sit back, rebuild, and try to figure out what he's going to do in that sense for next year. So the Joker and Jamal Murray and those went ahead and completed that sweep. So I guess if they had been in Denver, the brooms would have been out and all in that space. But we'll see what happens in Miami as they are trying to sweep their opponent, the Boston Celtics. And I'm sure the brooms will be out in that particular game as that is going on this afternoon. And of course, the Carolina Hurricanes, the team down here in that sport of hockey, a sport that I used not to follow at all, not even when I lived in the Midwest up there in Milwaukee, going to Marquette, but they are in a depot because they're down 3-0 and facing a sweep as well. So sweeps seem to be the notion of the day, and definitely we'll see what happens. But right now, it looks like it'll be Florida against Las Vegas in that particular finals in the NHL. But that's just a little bit of the sports world because I do follow sports, follow entertainment, and of course follow quite a bit of what's going on in the news in that sense. So seeing what is going on in that space, well, apparently there's a lot of back and forth testiness going on with this whole matter of a debt ceiling talk. So apparently Biden and McCarthy sounded optimistic on a debt ceiling deal after their meeting, but Biden did issue a terse statement after that conversation with McCarthy and all in that space. So they're apparently trying to avoid a catastrophe, and there's even some talk about using a certain amendment. And I know quite a few of those amendments. We don't know all of them, but apparently there is talk that Biden will use the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling. So this will be interesting to see what happens in that regards, and also how it plays out in the sense of the notion of the presidency and a number of other things that are going on, because we do have presidential candidates that are declared and others that are about to declare, and we'll see what goes on in that regards. It seems like every time that there is a president, somebody comes along and has a security issue going on with the White House as well. And this one is no different because apparently a U-Haul driver is facing multiple charges after he crashed into a security barrier near the White House. So the truck crashed into the security barriers near the White House, and the driver was arrested. So definitely it seems like they would have better security in that regards, but hey, you never can tell. Maybe the UPS driver was driving recklessly, or maybe he was trying to do something deliberately. Who knows? But we'll learn more about that, and maybe Lee's got some thoughts about White House security. So I'll be bringing in Lee very shortly and all in that space. And over there on the West Coast, California is emerging as the big winner in a Colorado river water deal. So that is something going on. And this also is something that the Biden administration has done because they have announced a historic plan to reduce the Western states' water supply issues and all in that kind of way. And it looks like some people are saying that the Colorado water deal is only a temporary reprieve, and we'll see what happens in that. And, we oftentimes talk about police and mental health, and it looks like the parents of a U.S. man killed by police during a mental health crisis will be getting $19 million and something in that space. I mean, that is, losing a loved one like that and using it so tragically. I don't know that $19 million would be enough, but I'm sure that they will use it and maybe even talk about mental health in that regards, because you do know that this month, the month of May, is Mental Health Awareness Month and all in that kind of way. And, I did mention other unusual news, and I'll find out whether Lee has ever had an encounter with one of these animals as well, because he's up there in the New York, New Jersey area. But one of the things that I'm seeing is that there was a shark attack off of Cape May, New Jersey. A young girl was hospitalized after that shark attacked her and is now sharing her story and all along those lines. So that is some of the things that are going on. And apparently, we've oftentimes had conversations here about the LGBTQIA community, and pushback that sometimes people get after events or folks that are proud of whatever is going on. And apparently the Dodgers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, have reinvited the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to their Pride Night. So I think that they had originally invited them, then disinvited them, and now it looks like they have invited them back in that space. So this is apparently what some people consider a anti-Catholic group and all in that space. And there are some people that are saying it is disgraceful in all in that kind of way. And we've talked a lot, and this is where I'll definitely bring in Lee Newton Rhodes and see what his thoughts are about a number of things that I brought up, and I'm sure we'll get up into some world editions as well. But there is talk about DeSantis being the possible new president and all in that space, because he's got to get past Trump. But there are some folks that are saying that if he is the president, he may choose 2 new justices. So there are some folks that are saying that DeSantis is envisioning shaping a 7-2 conservative majority on the Supreme Court. So he is even floating that idea, because he is definitely making it aware that the next president will likely choose at least 2 new Supreme Court justices. So I guess he's trying to float that idea to his conservative base, or to some of the conservative base, even though there are a lot of folks, and I don't know how Lee feels about this, that have always thought that the Supreme Court should be beyond politics and should be just dealing with what is going on in the legal realm. And speaking of the legal realm, there is a major civil rights organization that apparently has put out a travel advisory. I didn't even know that they did such things, and all in that kind of way. But the NAACP has put out a Florida travel advisory, I think because of the stances that they have found. And they said that Florida has hostility toward the African American community, and they have accused DeSantis of that. And they put out a statement that says you need to be careful who you patronize. So I do know that Florida can be a very popular tourism destination for a number of people on that regard. So apparently they have put it out there in that sense. And definitely it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regards. And by the way, speaking of NAACP and who they may or may not back, Tim Scott has said that he vows not to overturn the election if he loses, and definitely has apparently put himself out there as a presidential candidate. And he even says that his life disproves the lies of the radical left. And that is what his quote is, and all in that space. And apparently he is a very serious candidate. And some people are saying he is a more serious candidate than even Trump or DeSantis. And now that he is apparently officially declared, we will see how active his campaign is and whether he has a shot at winning that election or not. And then last but certainly not least, the Surgeon General has issued an advisory. We do have a media show, and we oftentimes talk about media issues, that is saying that social media is definitely out there contributing to what is going on with mental health and mental health crisis with our young folks. So the Surgeon General has warned that social media can be a profound risk to the youth, and he said that it provides that risk of harm for kids, and is calling attention to the lack of research that is being done on social media as well. So, Lee, I brought up a lot of things. We can get up to some other things that you might have in your mind and everything. One, have you ever gone to a beach and been attacked by a shark? Because I do know that the sharks do come up there that far, and I don't even know if you're a swimmer. I am not a swimmer whatsoever, even though my dad is a very good swimmer, but me and swimming are not friends. But I was just wondering if you've ever gone to one of those New Jersey, New York beaches and ever seen a animal shark, as opposed to the sharks that we know exist in politics, and you are involved in politics as well. So I know you've run into those sharks.
The secret's out, Mark. Good morning. Yeah, I'm a swimmer. I love going to the beach. Have you ever been to Hawaii? If you go to Hawaii, they're islands, and you can just pull over to the side of the road and go swimming wherever you want. All over the place. There's signs there. There was a shark here at one time, sightings or whatever. They probably put them there and they leave them there for decades, and they may never meet another shark again. But since people have a fear of sharks for obvious reasons, and you can't necessarily see them because they just come up to you. There's a fear of going into the water. It may not even be rational because there may not have been a shark there in 20 years.
Well,
but and there's, I don't know if this is trivia or not, but sharks don't like eating people. They mistake people for seals. Because two of my sons are scuba divers, and they frequently they would go scuba diving and they would see sharks in the water. I said, "Aren't you concerned?" I said, "No, because they're above us. They're not going to mistake people for The problem is with people go on surfboards or snorkeling, what have you. They mistake them for animals.
Right.
And they're very dangerous, obviously, and it's a concern. But people. So it's car accidents. People go in the cars. People get hit by lightning. People go for walks outside. But how realistic is the fear and is the risk of it happening? It's so minute.
So speaking of the fear and the risk of things happening, there's a couple of shows that I do here for Pod TV, and one of the shows is the radio show with Mark Lee, which I think some of our past folks that are not affiliated with the station that came up with that title because of my radio background and everything in that space. But my guest yesterday had I had two guests. One that was a lawyer that deals in a trademark and IP law and a number of things in that space. So Soraya Garner, I think was her last name, was one of those guests. And then there was a gentleman from Canada, Joseph, and all in that space. And he was telling me, because he's a resume whisperer and has had multiple jobs himself, but is very much involved in the employment space and all of that. But apparently there's a new job out there that I didn't know we would need, but apparently we need it because, coming back to the conversation around social media, there are people that are so distracted by social media that they need a walker. So apparently this was the job that actually exists. There are people that are basically like, spotters for these people, because these folks are so enthralled by what's going on in social media and so enthralled by what is happening in their lives that they may, unless they have somebody guiding them, walk into traffic. So there is literally a job out there, if you want it, that exists, where you would go around with these people that are traveling and
Mark, are you sure this is not satire?
No, this is not satire. This is an actual real job. The gentleman brought it up to me. It actually exists. It is a physical job that exists that you can actually hire. And I actually do sometimes speak of satire, and satire is a form of entertainment that I like and everything. But in this case, this is a real job. There are people that are trained to walk with folks to make sure that they don't go into the road because they are so absorbed by their social media. So this is an actual job.
I'll tell you why I'm skeptical of this. Because if they need somebody to walk with them because they're so absorbed, they obviously need a driver also. Do they hire someone, for their family relationships, for their romance? Do they hire someone for their job also and do their eating?
At this point, that is quite possible, but I will get up with Joseph. But I did do some fact checking, and it is an actual job. Now, how many people have this job? It's probably a very limited job and all in that space, but it is an actual real job that does exist and all in that space. And like you said, it is a very scary thought that folks are that absorbed that they have to have that kind of job. But along those same lines, and I mentioned it earlier and all in that space, one, I'd love to hear what you've got to say about Tim Scott and his running for office and all of that. But before we get to that, we oftentimes talk about social media. A lot of folks are absorbed on social media. I know I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook account, or a couple of them and everything. Have Instagram, and I'm actually fairly active on Instagram. Haven't really got into the TikTok movement and everything, but there are other ones that I'm not on at all, like Rumble and some of the other ones. Not saying that I wouldn't get on them. I just haven't signed up for them as of yet and everything. But our kids apparently are absorbed in social media. There is apparently a mental health crisis with our young people. So what is your thoughts about this notion that our fine Surgeon General has said that this is something we need to be concerned about? And he's also saying that there's not been enough research about what is going on here in that space. So Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, has brought this up and everything. So what is your thoughts about social media and the dangers of social media?
Well, it's true, and it's a distraction also, and also kids are very impressionable, and they get hurt very much also, whether bullying or what have you. There's an easy solution. Just make the minimum age for social media 16 or whatever arbitrary age you want to make it. And they can't go on without a driver's license ID or whatever, below that. The problem is, from a parent's standpoint, you can't tell your kid not to use Facebook or Instagram or whatever when all the friends are doing it. It's very, very hard. But if nobody's doing it, it's much easier. Like, nobody's driving at 14 and 15. You can't get your license. So it's like, Mom, Dad, everybody's doing it. I'm the only one in class. They can't have that argument. It's very hard not to give your kid a cell phone when everybody else has, and you verify it. Almost everybody else has a cell phone in class. But, you can give your kids, you can restrict what they watch, the hours and whatever. But if most of the class is on whatever app, it's very hard to get your kid not to be on that app.
Yeah, and you got some very smart kids out there and some very smart, maybe even dumb adults and everything. Because another news story that is floating out there now, and we've talked about it before on this network, is ChatGPT and some of the things that AI is able to do, and all in that space. And I do know that Nick sometimes gets us on Al Jazeera and some of the other media sources that are from other parts of the world, but apparently on both CNN, Al Jazeera, MSNBC, The Insider, and a number of other sources, there is conversation about a verified, and it was a verified Twitter account, because they were doing that whole verification thing, that was sharing a fake Pentagon explosion photo. So that went very viral, and they're saying there was an AI generated hoax of the Pentagon explosion. And apparently after it happened, the stock market dipped severely, because folks were thinking that it was another attack and that it was a real attack. So just wondering your take on this, because now that we've got AI, I'm sure that there will be all kinds of bad actors that will do all kinds of crazy things, and some folks will take these things very literally. But I was just wondering your thoughts, and if you had even heard about this particular fake Pentagon explosion that apparently went very viral, and a lot of people were thinking that the Pentagon had been under attack and maybe an explosion either internally or externally. I'm not sure what the nature of the explosion was in this Twitter account report, but it seems like it's a very real thing that was done by AI. So what's your thoughts, Lee, about AI doing all kinds of fake stuff as well as the positive stuff?
Did you see Ocean's 11?
The movie? Yes.
Yeah.
I think I saw both the original and the remake, because they did remake.
I didn't see the remake, but the original one. The reason I'm bringing it up is the way they were able to carry this off is they made the people in the casino, the owners, believe something that wasn't true, right, by playing with the video feed and what have you. And because of that, they actually let them come in and then leave with the money. Okay? Over here, it's very scary if a foreign actor can make the American or any government believe something took place that did not take place, and then get them to act as if it did take place. That's very scary.
Well, speaking of scary, I mentioned it earlier. It's happened a number of times under both Republican and Democrat administrations, and all in that space. How concerned are you when you hear about people literally like walking up to the gates of the White House, practically walking into the White House or driving into the White House? Because I cannot think in my 60 years of living, about to be 61 in July, a administration did not have somebody come up into the White House, which is supposed to be the key to the democracy of the world and a number of other things that we are proud to be as Americans. But sometimes I wonder how tight the security is in that very important place of the White House, and does it need to be tighter security? Because I mean, there have been even incidences of very people that had bad intentions toward the president, literally, having open access and having ability to get in and disrupt. And even sometimes I think some of the assassination attempts were from having too much easy access. And there are some people that would say that is what happened with the some of the folks on the January 6th attack as well. So I was just wondering, do you think that the White House needs tighter security, or is it just me? Because I mean, a UPS truck or a U-Haul truck having that kind of access seems like that would be problematic. And I can't think of an administration where there wasn't somebody that got a little bit too close to the White House.
How far do you expand that people, the general public, can go to? Because obviously you want to protect from the bad actors, right, but you also the accidents happen, whether a person, had a heart attack or what have you.
Okay.
And there might be some way to distinguish between the two of those.
Yeah.
But there should be a court, around the White House of all buildings, that people cannot go there uninvited.
I would think so, but I'm not sure that that corridor exists. But like I said, I'm not the legal expert. Maybe Nick will come over and he might have some thoughts around that. And I see he's in the background, and we'll see if he pops in at some point in the conversation or not. But and while I'm bringing,
And I do believe there's a lot that's going on there security-wise that the public does not see.
oh, I'm sure of that. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in those. It's like the old conversation about the back halls of politicians and the back halls of all kinds of deals. I'm sure there's a lot of things that we never see. I mean, there's like secret rooms that apparently weren't all that secret and everything. Because I think that Kennedy might have had one of those rooms, and some of the other ones that have been in the White House might have had rooms and places that we didn't know whether that was around backwood deals or whether that was around other kinds of things that might have been going on in those kind of great halls. Who knows? But unless you're part of that exclusive country club, and hey, you're running for president, maybe you'll get a chance to be part of that exclusive club and learn where the mirrors are hidden, and who's behind the closet, if I can borrow the Wizard of Oz kind of terminology. And
where these people go in an emergency call on January 6th or 9/11, where did these these politicians go to protect themselves?
Yeah, like I said, they must have had. Well, there's been talk for years that there are bunkers and other things that are there in the White House should there be a nuclear attack or some kind of other significant attack. I think that there was even conversation about some of that taking place some 20 years ago under 9/11 and all in that space. But unless you're part of that club, you probably don't know where those hidden tunnels are and some of these other ways to get around and get out and all in that space. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's another legal challenge that is going on, and it's not here, even though the person now lives in the United States with his American wife. But apparently Prince Harry has lost the legal challenge to pay for police protection while in the UK. So I guess he was trying to make sure that he would be protected when he was visiting his brother, the king, and visiting other family members and all in that space. And I know that even our presidents and past presidents are given protection and all in that kind of way. But I guess the royals over there have said that, you didn't want to be as much of the family as you used to be. So you don't need to have the access that you used to have as well. I guess he put up a legal challenge, and apparently he lost that legal challenge. So I guess he might not have as much clout when he goes back home to visit his brother and other family members. But I'm just wondering your thoughts about this, because apparently he put up a big stink, and I know there was also some conversation about him running around and maybe even being a little reckless when he was visiting.
Do they really need it? Does he really need all that security or any security?
I mean,
do our representatives need security more so than the general public? Why do politicians, I'm not talking about presidents and vice presidents, maybe even Speaker of the House, but why are politicians from state, city, federal, whatever, why are they entitled to private security on the taxpayer dime? I always wondered about that. They're more important than you and me?
I mean, is it private security? Because when I think of private security, I usually think of entertainment.
No, it's government security on the taxpayer dime. It's not the general police that's protecting you and me on the streets or subways. It's security that follows them around.
Right, and it's like you said, it's government paid security, because it's not like they have hired a security firm, because there are
a number
of bodyguards and security firms that a lot of the entertainers hire because of the paparazzi and
but that's on their own dime
and a number of other things. But that is on either their dime or the dime of the corporations that they are working for and all of that. But it is, like, to your point, it is not government funded. But I think that all of the politicians, and particularly on the national level, have some sort of protection that you and I do not have. And I don't get why they have that. And maybe folks can explain to me why they all need it and all in that space. But apparently there is thoughts of folks needed it in that space.
Don't get it. You brought up a number of things in your opening, whether it's good, the NAACP in Florida, right, and also the debt ceiling. You want to go on one of those topics?
Yeah, we're going debt ceiling, and we can go into Florida as well, and have another one because apparently North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper right here has declared a state of emergency over the school choice bill. So he has said it's time to declare a state of emergency for public education in North Carolina. So he's saying that we got to do something about our education system, and I guess he wants to declare a state of emergency. And I do know that there are a lot of places throughout the country that are feeling that the education system needs to be vastly improved. But we'll get into the debt ceiling and your thoughts around that, and then we'll also get
Okay, Nick showed up. So I have a question for Nick. The debt ceiling, the 14th Amendment. If you read Section 5, it says the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Right. It doesn't say the government. It doesn't say the president. It says Congress.
Yeah.
Am I right to say that the president has absolutely no authority whatsoever, and Biden can do absolutely nothing? Congress basically says this is the debt limit. Your problem. You don't like it? Reduce spending.
Well, it'll be interesting. It'll be up to the courts to define the parameters of the 14th Amendment. But the real question is if they don't do anything, they actually do allow the debt interest not to be paid, whether or not there's a private right of action.
Well, the interest is not the problem. We have more than enough revenue coming in to cover the interest, do we not?
Well, the thing is, the way they were, I'm not sure exactly the way they wrote the debt ceiling law. I'm not even sure if it's constitutional. It's never been challenged. So
that's an interesting point. No president has ever challenged it.
There's no precedence in this area. So you're walking on uncharted territories. I believe that just me reading it, that the thing is the public debt and the interest in the debt must be paid. Okay. So
that's correct. That's Section 4.
Okay. But does that mean that you also have to pay salaries of employees that work for the government? Do you have to fund all the programs? See, that doesn't seem to be like clearly stated. So it could end up in a situation where they fund the interest on the debt, but then some of these programs get compromised. The problem that I have is that, of course, they're going after they're negotiating the 2023 budget, which has already been passed by Congress. The 2024 budget has not been passed by Congress. The clarity that you get from the media is horrible. In other words, the reporting you get from media is horrible. And what reason I'm saying it is that for some reason they don't explain to the American public that we have a budget of, let's say, $2.4 trillion that we're spending that is the deficit and goes up next year to like 2.8 trillion. In other words, we have a certain amount of money that comes in, certain amount of money that goes out, and then a certain amount of money we borrow so we can spend more. And that's really what the problem is that we continue to add on to the national debt because we're spending more than we're taking in. These things are just not really reported to the American public properly. And that, of course, because we're spending more than we're taking in, piles on this thing called the national debt. And I don't know, even today, I just don't see it explained very well. But it is a serious problem, Lee. Make no mistake, okay, that the economy is a serious problem because Social Security, which is kind of easier to understand, they take an amount of money and they've actually have put reserves in their trust fund to pay future claims. What's happening in about 10 years from now, they're not going to have any of that. And they're going to be forced to reduce everybody's Social Security benefits. It's easier to correct it now than to wait 10 years from now when it becomes a crisis. The plan that I see by government, because no one will tell you what the plan is, because I don't think they have one, is let's wait till it becomes a crisis. And then we're going to have the U.S. government taxpayer bail us out. Here's the problem with the plan, Lee.
Nick?
Government's broke. So the person you're relying on to bail you out is broke. Now, if we had a sound federal government, that plan would work. You'd go, well, Social Security's going broke. What we'll do is we'll go to the general obligation fund and help provide Social Security, but it's broke. So what you're heading down is a path in about less than 5 years and definitely by 10 years where all these cuts that you see will take place, not because they're voluntary, not because we can or can't do it. We're going to be forced to do it. And no one wants to take responsibility in Washington. If they do, they're bad for whatever reason.
Nick, you want to explain to the viewer why Social Security should be a problem going broke? Social Security is basically an annuity, and the only way you get the benefit is if you participated in it and you put in while you were working. So
Yeah.
theoretically, only the people who put in are getting out, and you get out based on what you put in.
But
Why should it be going broke then?
that's how traditional funding of a pension and your retirement plans take place. You put money in, you build up an account, and then you take money out. All right. When your friend FDR created the system back in the 30s, that is not how it was funded. Here's how it was funded. And by the way, some pensions are funded this way too. I've been working in the pension area now for 22 years. It's kind of an interesting funding. We usually structure ours exactly what you say. You put money in, you build up an account, you take money out. But you could do is what they call pay as you go. We provide pension benefits to everybody based on the current income that comes in. There is no fund. All right? There is
It's
no
unfunded.
It's not, yeah, there is no fund. Your Social Security system, and this has never been explained to the American public, is funded that method. There is no fund. What happens, it's pay as you go. We call them PAYGOs, okay? The PAYGO system relies on current income coming in to pay current benefits that are out there. There is no fund. The myth is I built up a fund for me. That's
Nick?
a complete myth. That's not how our Social Security was structured. From day one, it was PAYGO. And you know what? They've never changed it.
Isn't PAYGO a nice way of saying pyramid scheme?
I don't want to go say it's a pyramid scheme, but it was also based on actual statistics that you have more younger people coming in to pay the older people going out.
Why is that not a pyramid scheme?
I understand. See, it's actual myth. What really happened was the younger people are shrinking and the older people are growing. So, but this is a correctable situation, Lee. It's actually correctable if you had anybody in Congress with a brain, which you don't, and you had any leadership in Congress, which you don't. And that's the reason David Walker's so great, because he's right. You have 10 years to correct the situation. If you have 10 years to correct it, it's much easier than when you have 1 year, or it's a crisis, which is where we're heading to.
Yeah, it sounds like a crisis. Hey, Nick, just really quickly.
David on. Your Medicare situation is not correctable. You're heading for a big crash in about, let me look at my watch, less than 5 years. The Medicare Trust Fund will go broke. And all these old people, they're going, I went into my health and got Medicare. Ain't going to happen anymore. It's gone. But now let's say you're a politician, Lee. Okay, you want to get elected. Here's an issue you do not want to discuss. Social Security and Medicare. It will not get you elected. David knows it. He's ran for office several times. He can't win because you can't get elected. Instead, you have to do everything's going to be fine. I'm going to increase your benefits, Lee. This is what you want to hear. I'm going to increase your benefits when I get in. I'm going to make sure all those problems you have are taken care of.
Nobody wants the truth.
Nobody wants the truth. Hey, but hold on a second.
Social Security. Hear what Biden said. Don't worry about Social Security. I got you covered. Don't worry about Medicare. America. That's what you.
Yeah, that's what you hear from the politicians. But Nick, I got to teach you
hear
about
the truth. You can't handle the truth. Okay.
But hold a second. Speaking of handling the truth, I do have to ask you a question because there's another group of people that
handle the truth.
They're very
Excellent
much about
scene.
the truth. Hey, there's another group of people that are very much about the truth, but unfortunately, I think that they are so much about the truth that we've got too caught up in the culture of what they are about. So I'm about to tease you, Nick, because there is a group of people that are part of the politics group and all of that, or the politics family. I'm not saying all the members of the Congress are in this group or this employment circle, but have we got too Sue happy? Because that's what I'm going to ask you, because you are a lawyer, and I saw that TikTok is suing Montana over the new law banning the app.
Yeah, right.
TikTok has gone around and sued
I saw that.
Montana.
Yeah,
hold on a second. I got another one for you. Because a drag show restaurant has filed a federal lawsuit against Florida and Governor DeSantis over the implementation of a law they say targets drag shows.
Mark, lawyers deal with conflict resolution, but the thing is, when it comes to the finances, which are, let's put it this way, from Social Security and Medicare, the sooner you deal with it, you have a problem that takes place 5 to 10 years from now. And let's say, Lee, because we do this in our homeowner association, we have roofs on our house and we have roads. we put reserves in today because the roof is going to expire
Rainy day fund.
20 years from now.
Maybe
You follow what I mean? So our reserves, and one thing I have to say was good about our HOA, we built up $1.2 million in reserves to take place. But when you draw it around all the houses, it's $11,000 per house. But what you're building reserves so that you can take care of the future obligation. If you do that, you're fiscally sound and everything's cool. And people seem to understand that here. So we pay a little extra every month. So we pay a little extra every month to make sure that our roofs and our grounds are taken care of. Because remember, to do this, you either have to increase taxes, and people don't want to hear that, okay? Or decrease benefits, and people don't want to hear that either. Or do both to make the system sound. So if I was a politician and my sale was, Lee, we're going to make Social Security sound. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to decrease your benefits. I don't want to hear that. Mark goes, no. And increase your taxes. No. Increase taxes, okay? But that's the only way you can get to that solution is you have to increase what you're paying into the system and or decrease the amount you're getting out, or both. When I say decrease the amount you're getting out, either you slow down the COLA adjustments, that would decrease it, or you extend the Social Security age, which they did years ago to keep the thing fiscally sound. Another thing they could do is lift the cap. And that will never bring up in front of Congress because people don't understand what is the cap. As you know, Lee, once you reach a certain income threshold, I think it's $145,000.
Right. They stop taking it out.
No,
you don't
but
pay into Social Security
hold on a second. Nick,
now
hold on a
listen
second.
to all the poor people that listen to this.
What kind of benefits
Okay.
do the folks in Congress have? And they're still getting their raises, and they're still getting their
I know.
benefits,
Okay,
and they're still getting their aid.
Rule number one.
Why do they care about the rest of the people? Because
They don't. Okay, rule number one, they don't. Okay, lifting the cap is very unpopular among the wealthy because they all make more than $145,000 a year. And Lee knows this. Okay, you pay into Social Security until you reach $145,000. The income above it, you don't pay in anymore. All right. So your friend Michael Jordan, Warren Buffett, and this is the reason they were complaining. Then they realized people are too stupid. They don't understand it. They go, I pay a lower taxes than my on a percentage basis than my secretary. Shouldn't we change that? And apparently everybody said, no, fine. Then all you poor people out there are going to eat it someday, and they will. Because what happens is once they hit that magic number, I think it's around 145,000 this year, you're above the wage base, you don't pay in anymore. Now, lifting the cap would require Michael Jordan, I don't know who else is, winning the basketball lottery, Warren Buffett, all these people to pay into the system. But guess what? They'll get around that also. How?
They'll find a way around it.
They take dividends in K1 distributions. And Lee knows this. Everybody takes a low salary in K1. So how do you do it again? You hit the Social Security tax on K1 distributions. Now,
one second.
Everybody.
No, but you're talking common sense, and common sense is not going to work in politics. We all know common sense is not going to work in politics.
I know it's not going to work.
It's not going to work in politics. I do have a question for you, and folks with you and Lee, just to switch the topic slightly and everything. But how important is it for us to protect
let's talk about it.
How important is it to protect the least of these when they have already committed a crime and everything? Because apparently there's a big case going on in Georgia, and I know you used to live in Georgia, Lee, and everything. Yeah. But apparently there was a case of a person that was living in prison there, and he was did some crime, whatever the crime was, and all of that, and he died while he was in prison because apparently there were a bunch of bed bugs there. So an autopsy has cited neglect for the man's death in a bed bug infested Georgia jail cell. So they are definitely probably going to do some sort of neglect lawsuit and all in that space. But how responsible do we need to be for folks when they go into prison for whatever crime they committed? Because apparently they're saying that this man died of homicides because the bed bugs ate him.
Is that possible?
Is it possible? What? So bed bugs, they eat you?
Yeah.
And
you don't know, and it happens like overnight. You don't get any medical care.
Well, that's apparently that's his issue. They're saying that he died of homicide because apparently there was no care from this particular jail that he was staying in. So apparently he was getting eaten the whole time, and nobody on the medical staff there, or nobody among his fellow inmates, or nobody else noticed that he was being eaten alive. And all, and that's baseball. What is your thoughts, Nick? You're a lawyer. I mean, it doesn't. The bed bug is not going to do it in a short amount of time. I would think that it's a small animal. I would think it would take a long time for that to happen, but I'm not that much aware of it and how many bed bugs there were. Who the heck knows? But that still seems like it was going to take a long time. So I would say that's some severe neglect, which is what the family is saying.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm not sure what the issue of the bed bugs are. They bite, and that's about it. That's all I know. I don't tend to gravitate toward wanting to spend my time in a prison cell, Mark, to be honest with you. It's not my idea of a good time. And I'm sure that the people that go there should know about the bed bugs, eating them alive, and perhaps operate as a deterrent for their future, and their future, which could be. Because you see, the thing is, a lot of the people commit crimes. I'm not sure. There must be short-term situations, or emotionally unstable, because if they look at it from a long-term perspective, your time in a prison probably isn't well spent, and probably not the nicest place to be in. So the bed bugs, Mark, may operate as a deterrent. It's kind of like a
Well, there could be a lot of things. There could be a lot of things that could be deterrents. We were talking about Florida, and I definitely want to get to Florida in a second as well. But one of the things that I think would be a deterrent, and you used to live in Florida, just like Lee used to live in Georgia and everything. I think it would be a deterrent to go and wrestle with an alligator. But apparently, a Florida man lost his arm to an alligator in an attack outside a bar.
Good people do stupid things. I mean, that's kind of it. Wrestling with an alligator is not the smartest thing in the world to do.
Was he intentionally, or was this an accident?
Who knows?
He says that he lost his arm after a 10-foot alligator attacked him. So I'm thinking.
Okay, fine. It's not like he said, his friends made a bet, go into the ring with this alligator. Let's see who wins.
They call it a bull shark attack. So apparently he said that the alligator wanted him.
Stay away from alligators and stay away from bed bugs. And also, I hate to say it,
jail.
Jail is not a good place. And also, I'm not going to Ukraine right now because there's Sasha. Because it looks like it's not a great place to visit, because you got all this contention between the Ukrainians and the Russians. I mean, they're all fighting.
Yes, they're constantly fighting. They're constantly fighting each other, going back and forth. I don't know that it's a great tourism place right now, so I don't know that you're going to exactly be rushing to go to Kiev, even though I understand Kiev was a wonderful place before the war and everything. And I have fairly good confidence that after they win the war, that they will rebuild it back. And then it would be definitely a great place to visit.
I mean, it's like this. I kind of understand the people in Ukraine, okay? Because you're like living in a house and some Russian tanks come rolling up at you. You're going to naturally get your guns and armament out. Some foreign country, let's say we live here in Mexico, starts coming in. We're going to start shooting them. I mean,
are they not, Nick? Are they not coming in? For those people living in Texas?
Yeah, well, I'm shocked that the people in Texas aren't shooting them as they come in.
Some of them are. They're getting in trouble.
Hold on a second. There was a shooting, but they got a little confused because apparently the Arizona Border Patrol shot a tribal member over there in Arizona. So I think they're tribal members. They weren't exactly not already in the country, but they killed the man on the tribal reservation there in Arizona. Now, whether he was visiting family, whether he was whatever, but they also shot him 30